Namaskar, a warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Anita Anand and with me is Nipunika Shahid bringing glimpses of major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. As the world fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of caution to stay safe and protected by following these three simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. The headlines. India and US jointly declare closer cooperation can promote security and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. US Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin meets External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar discuss wide-ranging issues on global strategic situation. Government of India asks states and union territories to take strict measures to contain COVID spike. Germany resumes AstraZeneca usage after European Medicines Agency green signal. Yashaswini Deswal bags first gold medal for India in women's 10-meter air pistol final of International Shooting Sport Federation World Cup. India's PV Sindhu crashes out of All England Badminton Championship. India and United States on Saturday agreed to realize the full potential of their comprehensive global strategic partnership. They also reaffirmed that their closer cooperation with countries keen to uphold rules-based order can promote security and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. In a joint press statement after his talks with U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh said it is consistent with India's policy of SAGAR, which stands for security and growth for all in the region. Mr. Singh said during the talks they reviewed bilateral defense cooperation and resolved to further deepen the ties.
Our discussions today focused on our wide-ranging defense cooperation and expanding military-to-military engagement across services, information sharing, cooperation in emerging sectors of defense, and mutual logistics support. We reviewed the wide gamut of bilateral and multilateral exercises and agreed to pursue enhanced cooperation with the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, Central Command, and Africa Command.
The Defense Minister said India and US felt the need for enhanced capacity building to address some of the non-traditional challenges.
We discussed the need for enhanced capacity building to address some of the non-traditional challenges such as oil spills and environment disasters, drug trafficking, illegal, underreported and unregulated fishing, etc.
In his statement, Mr. Austin said India is an increasingly important partner in today's rapidly changing international dynamics. The U.S. Defense Secretary said he and Mr. Singh had a very productive discussion. Secretary Austin said Indo-U.S. relationship is a stronghold of free and open Indo-Pacific region.
We also discussed engagement with like-minded partners through multilateral groupings such as the Quad and ASEAN. And as the Indo-Pacific region faces acute transnational challenges, such as climate changes and challenges to a free and open regional order, cooperation among like-minded countries is imperative to securing our shared vision for the future.
Mr. Austin expressed condolences for the tragic accident that killed an Indian Air Force pilot earlier this week. The U.S. Defense Secretary was accorded a Tri-Service Guard of Honor at the Vigyan Bhavan lawns in the national capital just before the talks. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin on Wednesday held wide-ranging talks on the global strategic situation. According to sources, during the meeting in New Delhi, Dr. Jaishankar spoke about India's currently security challenges and its long-term strategic outlook. Conversation also covered changing global scenario, including Europe and West Asia. In the meeting, assessments were exchanged on the peace process and the ground situation in Afghanistan and also the concerns and interests of regional powers and neighbors. Dr. Jaishankar appreciated the Biden administration's engagement with India on this issue. The two leaders recognized the steady growth of bilateral cooperation. Dr. Jaishankar apprised Defense Secretary of the progress and potential of various aspects of the leadership, highlighting the commonalities and convergence. He said that the relationship was unique for the breadth and intensity of cooperation that covered so many domains.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris visited Atlanta on Friday. Atlanta witnessed shootings at 3 spas in the city that killed 8 people earlier in the week. A report.
According to reports, the majority of the victims of the Atlanta killings were Asian American women, which has sparked a nationwide debate about anti-Asian racism amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Addressing the press earlier, President Joe Biden spoke about the atmosphere of fear prevailing over Asian Americans in the country.
Too many Asian Americans have been walking up and down the streets and worrying, waking up each morning the past year feeling their safety and the safety of their loved ones are at stake. They've been attacked, blamed, scapegoated, and harassed.
Vice President Kamala Harris, the first person of South Asian heritage to hold the office, also expressed concern over the attacks.
We've had people in positions of incredible power scapegoating Asian Americans, people with the biggest pulpits spreading this kind of hate. Ultimately, this is about who we are as a nation. This is about how we treat people with dignity and respect.
A statement from the White House condemned the ongoing crisis of gender-based and anti-Asian violence in the strongest possible terms. Mr. Biden urged Congress to swiftly pass the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. The Hate Crimes Bill requires a designated authority of the Department of Justice to expedite the review of COVID-19 hate crimes. The bill broadly defines COVID-19 hate crime as a violent crime that is motivated by the actual or perceived characteristic, such as race of any person and the actual or perceived relationship to the spread of COVID-19 of any person because of that characteristic. Mr. Biden said the act would expedite the federal government's response to the rise of hate crimes exacerbated during the pandemic and ensure that hate crimes information is more accessible to Asian American communities. Prashant Kumar Sinha for AIR World News.
Embassy of India in Beijing kick-started India at 75 celebrations with the belated Vishwa Hindi Divas celebrations on Saturday. The event was attended by the Chinese students studying Hindi in different Chinese universities, their Hindi teachers and members of the Indian community in Beijing. Ambassador Vikram Misri said that Hindi is one of the top spoken languages in the world and Vishwa Hindi Divas is an occasion to promote Hindi and celebrate its popularity at global level. A video celebrating India's achievements since independence was played on the occasion to celebrate the 75 years of India's independence, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. A report from our Beijing correspondent.
The celebrations of 75 years of India's independence, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, could not have got a better start when Chinese academicians and students joined embassy officials and Indian community to celebrate Vishwa Hindi Divas. Chinese teachers and students termed Hindi as an important medium to understand India's culture and emphasized on its role in building bridges between India and China. Professor Chiang Chankui, a renowned Chinese authority on Hindi language and spearheading the efforts to promote and popularize Hindi in China, told Prasar Bharati Beijing that efforts are underway to establish 4 more national-level centers for studies related to India, especially Hindi, by the end of this year, in addition to existing 2 centers at Peking University and Shenzhen University. At present, around 500 Chinese students are studying Hindi in around 17 universities in China. Indian community, students from Peking University, and Chinese friends presented cultural performances in Hindi language, highlighting the role of language in enhancing people-to-people exchanges. Anshuman Mishra for World News, All India Radio, Beijing.
India has administered over 420 million COVID vaccination doses. The Health and Family Welfare Ministry has informed on Saturday that a total of 2.72 million doses of vaccines have been administered to the beneficiaries in the last 24 hours. Meanwhile, the Home Ministry of India has instructed all the states and union territories to take necessary steps to promote COVID-19 appropriate behavior among people and ensure strict enforcement of safety measures to curb the rising cases of COVID-19 in the country. The order came in the wake of rising cases of COVID-19 in some of the states and union territories. Now let's take a look at the coronavirus updates from around the world.
Nepal has given emergency authorization to India's COVID-19 vaccine, Covaxin. It has become the 3rd country to approve the shot developed by the Bharat Biotech and a state research institute. Meanwhile, under the Vaccine Maitri initiative of the Government of India, Lao People's Democratic Republic has received the Made in India COVID-19 vaccines. A plane carrying the consignment of vaccine doses landed in Vientiane on Saturday. On Friday, Solomon Islands had received the Made in India COVID-19 vaccines. The Prime Ministers of France and the United Kingdom got their first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine against coronavirus on Friday. Several European countries, including Germany, began using the AstraZeneca COVID-19 shot again after the EMA declared the vaccine safe for use on Thursday. Meanwhile, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said there was no question over the benefits of the AstraZeneca shot after the UN Health Agency's vaccine safety experts found no increase in clotting conditions linked to the vaccine. Prashant Kumar Sinha for AIR World News.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has wished a speedy recovery to Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan from COVID-19. Earlier, Pakistan Health Minister Faisal Sultan tweeted that Mr. Imran Khan has tested positive for COVID and is self-isolating at home.
This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter @AIR News Alerts.
3 steps to stay protected and stay safe from COVID-19. Wear face mask, 2 gaz ki duri to maintain social distancing, maintain hand and face hygiene.
Welcome back. In today's Hotspot section, we are taking a closer look at the U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin's visit to India and its significance in the larger context of India-U.S. relations. In conversation, our former diplomat, Mr. Anil Wadhwa, and journalist Manas Bhuyan.
Welcome, Ambassador Wadhwa, to All India Radio. We are discussing India-US partnerships in the backdrop of today's wide-ranging talks between Defense Minister Rajnath Singh and U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. Sir, what is the most strident aspect of today's discussions, according to you?
I think it was a very wide-ranging discussion, which was in keeping with the spirit of the current status of Indo-US relations, obviously covered a lot of ground. And if one looks at what has come out of the press conferences, etc., it's quite clear that it was not just military cooperation or defense, but also other aspects of security in the Indo-Pacific, counter-terrorism, cyber security, and 5G, etc., the military health security, sharing of information. So it's a wide range of topics which they discussed today and covering the entire gamut of the Indo-US relationship.
So in his comments, Secretary Austin has very clearly said that we discuss opportunities to elevate the U.S.-India major defense partnership. And in reflection of the importance that the new administration has given to India, he said that in fact, elevating the opportunities is a major priority of the Biden-Harris administration.
Yes, I think this has been quite clear ever since the Biden administration has been in power in the United States, that it will continue to build on the relationship that India has with the United States and take this forward in new areas of cooperation. In fact, cooperation in new domains is exactly that. And from the Indian perspective, I think it is the enhancement of information sharing in the Indo-Pacific, which seems to be the most significant. But along with that, there is also movement towards making sure that there is an emphasis on defense production with manufacturing in India, which will benefit India a lot in the coming years. And the United States is keen that that relationship rests on this pillar of defense cooperation going forward.
So how do you see Defense Minister Rajnath Singh's comment that particularly in the Indo-Pacific Command and Central Command and Africa Command of the U.S. and the Indian military?
Well, it has always been, there has been a difference in perspectives about the emphasis of cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. And it's very significant that today we had a clear enunciation of the two sides working together, not only in the Pacific Ocean, but also in the Indian Ocean. As you know, for India, the Western Indian Ocean has always been a focus along with the other parts of the Indian Ocean for our own security, and because of the fact that the Chinese have stations now themselves in Djibouti, and at the same time, Gwadar is becoming a very important hub for the Chinese Navy. Looking at it from that perspective, and the fact that India's energy security to a large extent also depends on safe passage in the Western Indian Ocean. It's very important that the two navies cooperate, and I think we're going to see much more of cooperation in that part of the oceans. We're also going to see, by the way, after the last Quad meeting, a decision has been taken for interoperability exercises of the Quad with France in particular. And also in the coming months, we're going to see trilateral exercises, which will also become very important.
Do you see, in fact, any future collaboration as the military coalition between the Quad members, particularly India, US, Japan, and Australia, which has been a very view by the US that, in fact, all the key players should come together and cooperate in the military sphere? So do you see India in the future joining such a coalition to basically check growing military assertiveness by China?
Well, I think, it's quite clear that from the Indian perspective, the Quad is not a military alliance. It is a cooperative framework in which these countries have come together to talk about issues which are of benefit to all of them, but not necessarily a direction in which the Quad points itself towards a military alliance, or India also would not like the Quad to take that direction. But at the same time, given the fact that there are interoperability agreements now in place between the Quad members, and the naval exercises are taking place and will take place going forward, the emphasis is on maritime domain awareness, interoperability, and at the same time making sure that the oceans are free from interference so that normal trade and commerce can proceed without any hindrance. Right. Obviously, India would like to see a peaceful settlement of disputes going forward in the region, which has been the emphasis of the Quad as well.
Would you like to just, list some of the areas where the two countries are expected to expand their overall cooperation?
If you look at statements which have come out from the two sides, of course, the shared values of democracy, pluralism, and commitment to a rules-based order is the focus between the two sides. But Indo-US, how to take the Indo-US strategic cooperation forward, how to consolidate on defense sales and technology transfer, and also consolidate on the Indo-Pacific strategy has always been a stated aim of the U.S. administration, especially after the Biden administration has taken charge. From the Indian perspective, though, it will have to be a much more broad-based agenda. And India would also like to lay some stress on cooperation in cybersecurity, the supply chain security initiatives that have been talked about in the context of the Quad, and counterterrorism as well. But most importantly, as I already told you, I think India has been designated as a major defense partner by the United States in 2016, and India would like to make sure that this cooperation, the defense production aspect is emphasized going forward. The defense trade and cooperation in new domains is something India would like to see, and would also like to consolidate upon the areas of cooperation and technology transfer that we've been talking about over the past few years.
Is the defense and security partnership between India and US going to significantly expand under the Biden administration, or it will be a steady kind of a flow that we will see that was witnessed under the Trump administration also?
So I think the defense and security cooperation has been expanding steadily over the years. If you look at the cumulative figure today, $21 billion worth of arms and ammunition and technology have been transferred from the United States to India. Some of these are very critical. And India, of course, has been emphasizing on the technology transfer aspect quite a bit. So that includes expanded military exercises, also includes joint training of international peacekeeping troops, making sure that refueling arrangements between the two navies are in shape. And that is the result of the three basic agreements that we've signed with the United States, which are essentially the Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement, then the Communications Compatibility and Security Agreement, and also in 2020, the Basic Exchange on Cooperation Agreement, the BECA, which gives us the geospatial intelligence which the United States has been sharing with us. So going forward, I think for the security of India, these agreements are quite useful. How to operationalize them and to make sure that the exchange of information is consolidated is a very important aspect for India. Technology transfer and arms production in India itself under the rubric of Atmanirbhar Bharat is also very important. The United States has come to realize that that is the way to go forward, and is willing to now talk about it in a much broader perspective. So all in all, I think we're going to see, a lot of progress going forward on this aspect.
There has been apprehensions that the U.S. administration may impose some sanctions on India for our procurement of a batch of S-400 air defense missiles from Russia. And both sides are engaged in this issue. And a very senior Senate member before Secretary Austin's visit to India had sent a letter to him asking him to raise this issue with India. So do you see any friction points in overall military and defense cooperation between India and U.S., considering India's procurement of arms and ammunition from Russia, as Russia has been one of our very old and trusted supplier of military weapons and defense platforms?
So India would not like to have any curbs in the autonomy that it has in terms of its determination from where it procures its arms and ammunition, etc., and technology. And as you rightly said, Russia has been a very important partner for India in the past, and India would like to retain that autonomy of decision making. Of course, under CAATSA, the United States has been raising the issue of the sales of S-400 to India, but that's an ongoing process. Currently, as you know, one installment has already been paid to the Russian side. And going forward, India would like to impress upon the United States that any curbs on its own decision-making could adversely affect, the whole relationship, defense relationship with the United States. So obviously, if at all this issue has to be raised, it will not be raised publicly. It will have to be discussed between the two sides in an in-depth manner. And I'm certain that the two sides will be able to overcome, this difference, because there's also a provision of a waiver under the CAATSA provisions under U.S. law. And that is something that India would be looking forward to going forward.
Several U.S. defense majors have expressed their apprehension about safety of top secret U.S. military technology in India. So they have been seeking some kind of protection from leakage of such technology and information. So do you think, in fact, that both sides will address this issue and ensure that there is no hiccups in our cooperation in production and manufacturing of military platforms and defense equipment?
So whenever, there are agreements of this kind, there are secrecy agreements which are signed up front. And it is also built into such agreements that the details, the equipment or technology would not be shared with other parties. So that's something which regularly happens. And in terms of the original equipment manufacturers entering India and making use of the new FDI policy that has come about in India, I think that is something which will be also inbuilt into the defense production processes in India. So I don't think there should be too much of worries on that score as far as the United States is concerned. India will work with all partners and ensure that their own technology secrets and whatever they want to preserve would be preserved through agreements that will be signed in an appropriate manner. I'm sure the issue of S-400 sales, etc., would fall in a similar category, where the United States would like India to buy its own equipment rather than buy from Russia. But there will be similar instances going forward. And if India has to keep a strategic autonomy, it will have to make sure that it assures all its partners that their military technology, secret and other details are kept within the bilateral purview.
Sir, in fact, our defense minister also made a very important point in his media statement that, in fact, both sides have acknowledged that they have put in place 3 foundational agreements that you also mentioned, LEMOA, CONCASA, and BECA. So now they are discussing steps to, realize the full potential of these 3 foundational agreements. So what kind of specific expansion of the cooperation you see, sir?
Yes, I think these are 3 very, very important foundational agreements. We have not really seen the results of these agreements so far because they've not been used to the extent that they can be. But looking at it from any perspective, I think they all have a lot of potential in terms of the range of facilities that can be enjoyed between the 2 armed forces, whether it's the Navy or the Air Force or the Army. In terms of information exchange, that's the first priority. That means the more information you have, the better you are. And in terms of logistics exchange, refueling, replenishment, and use of each other's facility is extremely important in today's context. And thirdly, in terms of information warfare technologies, and based information. Of course, that is something which will take the cooperation to the next level. So I think that's what the two sides would be discussing and probably take this forward through working groups in the coming months.
How do you see, sir, the bilateral initiative getting traction in overall comprehensive strategy of ensuring a free and inclusive Indo-Pacific?
If you look at the last Quad meeting, the agenda and the agreements that have come out, three things stand out quite clearly. One is that the Quad is not unidirectional. It is not a security alliance, first of all. Secondly, it has agreed to now diversify and cooperate in some very important fields. The Resilient Supply Chains Initiative was something that was talked about between three countries in September, which is Australia, India, and Japan. But now talking about new technologies and critical minerals and how to take our cooperation forward in those areas is a very important aspect. There is also climate change, which has been brought in as a subject which is facing all countries of the region.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to sports, Yashaswini Deswal bagged the first gold medal for India in the women's 10-meter air pistol final of the International Shooting Sport Federation ISSF World Cup on Saturday at the Dr. Karni Singh Shooting Range. Earlier in the day, world number one shooter Divyansh Singh Pawar claimed the bronze medal in 10-meter air rifle men's category and opened India's medal account in the competition. India's ace shuttler PV Sindhu crashed out of the All England Open Badminton Championships on Saturday with a semi-final loss to Thailand's Pornpavi Chochuong. She lost 17-21, 9-21 in a match that lasted just 45 minutes and failed to make the final. In cricket, India beat England by 36 runs in the fifth T20 match at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad on Saturday night, chasing a victory target of 225 runs. England finished 188 for 8 wickets.
And now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Washington Post says that surveillance video shows Atlanta suspect enter first bar more than an hour before shooting. The Washington Post also reports that the Tokyo Olympics organizers banned spectators from outside Japan in pandemic control measure. The Himalayan Times reports major earthquake hits Japan's main island Honshu. Gulf Times reports that Tanzania swears in its first female president.
A quick look at the headlines once again. India and US jointly declare closer cooperation can promote security and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. US Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin meets External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, discuss wide-ranging issues on global strategic situation. Government of India asks states and union territories to take strict measures to contain COVID spike. Germany resumes AstraZeneca usage after European Medicines Agency green signal. Yashaswini Deswal bags first gold medal for India in women's 10-meter air pistol final of International Shooting Sport Federation World Cup. And India's PV Sindhu crashes out of All England Badminton Championship. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let's listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Laos. And with that, we end this bulletin. See you at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.